Welcome back to Shovel Knight. Last time we went through the first couple of stages in the Tower of Fate, and before we actually head to the final stage to defeat the final boss, we're going to be handing over these not final music sheets to the Bard. Of course, there's still a bunch missing. We've only gotten about 40, I think, and there's 46 in total, so we'll deal with that in a bit. But yeah, well, not actually the final part, because we still have the other campaigns to go through after this one, but the final stage of Shovel Knight's campaign, I feel confident in calling it that. Before we actually get to the boss though, we have a bit of actual platforming challenge to do. Very Zelda-esque, this room, having to dodge the tiles and such. At least that's what it reminds me of. Like in, I don't know, A Link to the Past, where there are rooms that you have to block tiles in this game, though you can't really block them, so phase through them. At least if you actually have the phase locket. You might be one of those people who wants to get through the game without using any of the relics, and that's possible. There's a feat for it as well. Of course, I'm not getting it, because I'd prefer to get the feat for getting a bunch of things, rather than the feat for getting not a lot of things. And speaking of a bunch of things, there's a bunch of things here. Some money, and 5 music sheets. Although, again, this is one of those cases where you have to head to the left, kind of like with King Knight's stage. And it's not even at the beginning of the stage either. It's in this weird bit where there's platforms that constantly rise and lower and you can't exactly see where you're supposed to be going. I guess the closest similar platforming challenge would be the disappearing, reappearing blocks in the Mega Man games. Although this is less memorization and more patience, I guess. Back there we had a Troupple. I think that was the only Troupple in this game that actually gives you the Ikora Renewal, the red one that fills up your magic and your health, that I think I've used, but not in a very useful way. I probably used it like just before grabbing another Troupple just to see what that Troupple had. But yeah, only case of it in this game. I think. Maybe they're all random, and I just got weirdly lucky with my first set of stages all having a boldness and the second set all having renewal. Anyway, once you get to those candelabras, I guess I could call them. They're not really lanterns. You can pretty much run forward to get to the end of the level. And there she is, the Enchantress, sitting near an open window while it's raining, which makes me think that it should be raining into this room, but whatever. The Enchantress, of course, is our final boss, at least Shovel Knight's final boss. And, oh, he said something pretty important there. It was red text. Well, then again, red text is used for a lot of things, like Shield Knight and Black Knight. I don't know, I couldn't think of any other things. But the Enchantress, not a very difficult boss fight in terms of how she battles you, but pretty difficult in terms of it being a platforming challenges, because platforming challenges, yeah, good job. Because you can actually fall down these pits, you can break these blocks by accident and end up plummeting to your death, so shovel drop canceling is a pretty good technique. Although something that I like to do is drop on a couple of them to get a charge slash for the Dynamo Mail and then hit her with it to do a little bit of extra damage. I don't think there's going to be a case where all of these will be destroyed at once. She will regenerate them with those flaming attacks as we saw earlier. And you can reflect her shots back at her, although I don't think there's a feat for doing it with her just for Black Knight. There is a feat for reflecting like 30 shots back at enemies, I think, but not one for the Enchantress specifically. And she also has that weird Storm Eagle-esque attack where she dives in and out of, well, being above the blocks and being below the blocks, I guess you could call it. After defeating her, she reverts back to Shield Knight. That's what I wanted to mention before the boss fight actually started. That the Enchantress turned out to be Shield Knight the whole time, which did surprise me the first time I played. I guess I wasn't paying attention very well because looking back on things, it is pretty... What's the word? Not obvious, but hinted at, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, of course, final bosses can't have just one form. There needs to be a second. And this second form is also pretty easy. What you're supposed to do is stay near Shield Knight. And sometimes Shield Knight will jump up and put out her shield. Once she does so, you can shovel drop off of her and smack the Enchantress right in the face. You can do what I'm doing and get charge shots off, but I think just bouncing and slashing also gets you the same amount of damage done. But not too difficult of a boss fight. There will be cases when, as she's doing right now, she destroys platforms, so you have some more limited space. Stay near Shield Knight. I think I said that already. Because Shield Knight pretty much knows what's what platforms are going to be safe, where you should stand when the Enchantress shoots her attack, like this one right here. When she sends that attack, you can go behind Shield Knight and protect yourself, but I decided to bounce off of Shield Knight and get in one good last hit. Apparently Shield Knight couldn't protect us from that one though, but it was mostly because Shovel Knight wasn't near her, as I said. Should follow my advice, but whatever. Shield Knight's gonna block these final fireballs for us so Black Knight can get us out of here. For some reason, Shield Knight is just stationary in the air. She should be being pushed back, but whatever. Suspend some disbelief. Also, I didn't mention it, but there was a falling section, at least a Shield Knight falling section, kind of reminiscent of the Dreams, where you can just catch her. I've never dropped her, so I don't know what happens. And also, Shovel Knight's jump is really gimped at that bit for some reason. Like, the height that I jumped to during that sequence was the max height you could get to. So, that's kind of weird. But now that the credits are over, well, not the credit, the boss fight is over, we get the credits sequence-ish. Not exactly, more of a where are they now kind of sequence. The credits come a bit after. And I really like this ending, getting to see all the knights doing some special things, like this one right here. It's the Lich Yard with Spectre Knight, and we get to see him enjoying some of whatever Mona's game is called. And apparently he only got a score of 3. He really sucks. Very odd was that bit, because Shovel Knight's the most, I don't want to say edgy, but down character, at least in the Knights. Croaker's obviously the most down character, but him having fun is kind of nice to see, but it's also kind of unfitting. And now we get Plague Knight doing some stuff, hanging out with the Magicist, maybe hinting toward something that might be happening later. And Mole Knight's being a nice guy, helping out with excavations. Of course, Mole Knight would just continue with the digging business, although that excavation seemed very planned, considering how the blocks were laid out and there was just a ladder right there to lead to the treasure, but whatever. I guess I could talk about opinions and also opinions, like opinions on myself and opinions on the game. As for the game itself, it's really, really good. Like, I'd give it 8.5 out of 10. It's not very beginner friendly. It's probably for those people who have played older, more, well, not more, but very difficult games like Mega Man or the original Mario Brothers games. Like Mario 3 is flippin' hard, but this is probably geared toward those people. Maybe that's just me, again, trying to put forth my theory that nobody got past the first 3 Knights of the Order of No Quarter, and that's why they're the ones that are getting campaigns. But, not a very easy game. I should know. I've played it a lot for this Let's Play, considering that I've had to practice a bunch. And I'm not that good at it. I did die a lot during my practice runs. But, you know, I'm one of those guys that can persevere through things, and if you're able to persevere, it's fine. You can get through without dying. That's another thing. I got through without dying. That's why I get the feat Impossible just there, and also Perfect Platformer. You get that one for not falling into any pits. And then the last one, Victory, is just for beating the game. But I guess I'm talking about that not beginner friendly thing in terms of me going through not dying. It is technically friendly, considering that the punishment for dying isn't all that punishing. You get sent back to the last checkpoint, of course, but there's an alive system. There's no game over, so you won't be booted back to, I don't know, the world map or the title screen or anything like that. You'll just go back to the last checkpoint that you didn't destroy, and also you lose some money, but that's not too detrimental. I had a bunch of money at the end, so money isn't hard to come by, of course. I guess I should revise my score a little bit. 8.6. You know, that fits a bit better. As for myself during this game, pretty lame, I think. At least compared to something like Sonic Adventure. I'm not going to count Ocarina of Time because that one was kind of cheating. And Mario 64 was live, so I had to lower my standards a bit more for that one. Can't exactly put it up against this one, considering it's in post. I didn't do any of that pausing and going back stuff this time, although I did do some retakes. For the most part, lots of them, well, them being the episodes, a lot of them were done on the first take. I'd say more than half, but some of them I did like go back because I didn't feel like my commentary was that good. But that ends up making them better in the long run. It's just that when I think about my commentary skills, it's like, you know, I still can't do it in one take, so I still have to deduct some points from myself. And that's pretty much all I have to talk about. Hopefully the credits are nearing their end at this point, so we can actually get on to what's happening after this this credit sequence ends, because we are going to be doing something after. The credits aren't so long that they add like 10 minutes to a part. But we saw a scene earlier where Black Knight kind of carried us to the log that we're usually resting at after we complete a stage. Speaking of logs, we have this digging log here, which shows stats throughout the game. How long you took to beat levels, how much money you got in the levels, or at least the best amount of money you got in each level. Sorry, I kind of burped there for a minute. You probably won't be able to hear that. But just for proof that I didn't die at all. No lives lost, no gold lost. Got a ton of money. The number of times that I was in the stages probably doesn't equate to the time that I played. Mostly because I kind of left the world map open a bunch. This game can be beaten in an hour 30. if you're going at a pretty brisk pace. In fact, as we might have seen earlier, well, as you might have seen earlier, I was definitely paying attention. The world record for this game, at least when that was, you know, when this game was last updated, was 45 minutes for Shovel Knight's campaign, which is pretty dang fast. And now at the end, Shield Knight comes to the log and decides to lay down with Shovel Knight. Kind of adorable. Kind of reminiscent of the first part, the prologue, where Shovel Knight and Shield Knight were hanging out around a fire, and they had a bunch of money surrounding them. Now it's just the fire, even though I probably should have money surrounding me considering how much I got. Did you see that total haul? Over 100,000 gold, even though I spent a lot of gold too. Back to the title. Now we actually have some stuff unlocked, like the Plague of Shadows campaign, where you get to play as Plague Knight, which is what we're going to be doing in the next episode of Shovel Knight. And we also unlocked Challenge Mode, which I'm not going to be showing off. There's your incentive to buy the game, play Challenge Mode. But some of the things I do want to show off by going back in here is... well, I'm not going to be showing it off right now, but there's a sort of checklist in this game. Not exactly one long list, though. Basically, when you're out on the overworld and you're hovering above something that's considered a level, so not any of those, what do you call them, like intersection kinds of things, you'll see a little prompt pop up that says, press your item menu button, like the same button that lets you see what relics you have and stuff like that. As we can see here, via this long checklist, I missed a music sheet, and I already talked about this. Due to the music sheet surrounding it though, you can kind of tell what stage it's from, like the one right before it was from Polar Knights, the Polar Knight boss theme specifically, and the one after it was Propeller Knight's boss theme, so you'd know that it's Propeller Knight stage that I have to go to. And we can see here, thanks to the little info tab, that I am missing a sheet. I don't know how many times I could say that throughout this part, but let's head on up to the aerial anvil, because I want to buy the rest of the armors and talk about them a bit. The final guard here gives you a nice red color, makes it so that you drop less money when you die, which is kind of useless when I don't die. The Conjurer's Coat, which sounds pretty cool, but I never really used it. It increases your magic capacity by 1.5 times. I think you get more magic from enemies, and you take double damage in exchange for having more magic. This Mail of Momentum here, I stopped at the ladder, like right before the ladder, but I kept on walking. It makes it so that you're a bit more slippery, but I don't think you get knocked back by enemies when you're wearing it. The slipperiness, though, is kind of deterring, so I've never used that one. And now we have the Ornamental Plate. And I got the feet decked out for having, I think, every upgrade, relic, and armor purchased. As you saw there, I got launched by the catapult, but I landed on my feet. Didn't faceplant. The Ornamental Plate, that's what it was called, right? Is strictly that. Ornamental. It's just for looks. You get some fancy jumps, and that's really about it. It does have a certain use. If you're in a dark area, like in the Lich Yard or the first stage of the Tower of Fate, when you jump and you do the fancy jump, there's sparkles behind you, so you can kind of tell where you are thanks to this armor, but other than that, it's pretty much the original armor fancied up. That's all it really is. The music that I'm using here for this sped up bit of Propeller Knight stage is Skydeck's Act 1, because, you know, this place is in the sky. And it stops abruptly because the music sheet is actually right ahead. Just break this wall, climb up, and it's right over there. The reason I didn't get it, at least the reason I like to think that I didn't get it, is because it's so dang soon after you get the first one. 2 screens down was the entrance to where you get the propeller blade, and because of that, I thought to myself, well, since I got the music sheet in that propeller blade testing out area, it wouldn't be anywhere close to it. Turns out I was wrong. It was very, very close. But now that I've gotten it, I can blaze through the rest of this stage. At least I'd like to blaze through the rest of the stage, but I kinda mess up a little tiny bit. Like right here. I could have hit that bed of spikes, but I didn't. I was skillful enough to get past. And we're pretty close to the end. Just have to get past this wind pushing area. And hopefully not call the spiked areas pits. Since, you know, it's not really a pit if it's on the ceiling. It's more like they're stalactites. Or is it stalagmites? I think it's stalactites. Because stalactites has a T in it as compared to stalagmites. I mean, stalagmites also has a T in it, but, you know, the difference between the mite and the tight part, mite has M, so it's, I don't know, whatever. Tight has T, so it's on the top. That's how I remember that. That's such a dumb tangent to go on. Why did I do that? Anyway, beat Propeller Knight there. A little faster than I did previously, I think, because I actually used the anchor to hit him while he was in midair. And also, he didn't destroy the platform that I was on as early. He just used bombs like he does in his boss rush boss fight. And then, on like the second salvo, he actually destroyed the platforms. But there we go, got the last music sheet in. I'm pretty sure I haven't called it a music note this entire video, which is good. And we get the Feet Music Lover for handing them all in. If you talk to the bard and press start on a sheet of music, he'll actually give you the flavor text that he gave when you gave the sheet to him. But that's about it. Next time we meet in the Shovel Knight universe, we'll be doing Plague of Shadows.